Okay, let's begin with me sharing a brief overview. For those of you who joined before, you can do some quick email checking or looking at other things. I wanted to give those who haven't joined, again, a brief reminder of where the college is in this program health journey. I will share my screen that has a few brief slides, and then we will get into our discussion. So hopefully you see the screen that says program health retention module on it. I wanted to, again, remind you, this was me also trying to tilt a session a little bit. And those are the principles that I'm still learning, but beginning with some clear purposes. Again, brief knowledge on the new program health structure. And to Gail's point, perhaps how to begin data entry into the Watermark system that we will practice in Watermark. And I want, again, to provide some dashboard reminders and familiarity on how to find this information and what to sort of story tell, which is the third one that I want to, again, remind us that this exercise is in telling what we think is an evidence-informed, evidence-based story on our programs. And again, this is capturing the knowledge, capturing the expertise that department chairs, I need to change my vocabulary, that department chairs bring with them to this process. And then ideally, the fourth one is sort of a stretch, but if we can think about how we would apply this knowledge when we all know that higher ed in general is under critique and review of others, that we can say, oh, no, this is what we do and this is what we're good at when we do it. Why are we doing this? Again, these are the four that I've sort of led with other presentations. It is about measuring the rigor that you all offer in your programs, why our programs are relevant, and what community and transfer alignment experts we have within our institution. I want to be able to have evidence so that decisions can be made not just on anecdotes, but on evidence-backed storytelling, that we can grow and sustain programs and consider ones that maybe aren't meeting our expectations. I do want this storytelling method to make sense to those who are trying it. I want it to be valuable to you all, that we can try to use both quantitative and qualitative data. And the fourth one that I leave on my screens, just because you all know I'm in that world so much, is that we are expected to do this. But I don't want to lead with that. I don't want that to be the primary reason why. Again, reminding that we do have a strategic direction with a number of focus areas, and this one happens to be the first. And because most of us are in academic affairs, maybe one of the most important, that I do think that the whole existence for our institution is about student learning. We want to make sure our programs are of high quality and rigorous content, and that we want to not only be able to prepare students for success in the working world, but also for transfer. Again, a reminder of the sort of rough Venn diagram of the three big activities that I try to do every year with help from all of you, that we have this program health process that does address program learning, the learning outcomes in some ways, and does touch on our general ed core competencies, especially for my colleagues in the STEM and humanities, social sciences. But Robin knows well that business students are also taught how to think critically and how to write, as do our health profession colleagues. So these exercises are occurring ideally in all our schools. So this is where we are for this coming year. Remember, last year we tried to do 3 modules, and we heard the feedback from those of you who were involved in this that it was a lift and it was a lot of exercise. We've redesigned and reordered the modules to hopefully align with work that you're already doing. Last time we met, we spoke about enrollment. And again, I just briefly showed where enrollment trends exist on the academic program student performance dashboard. And we will go back into that today as a reminder briefly, but I want to really spend time with these retention metrics. Of the 5 that I was hoping to talk about today, it's really only the 5th one in advising, where I'm going to need your help, because I don't know what is an easy go-to source to tell a story about advising. A lot of this, I think, is just coming from your experiences and from your brains. how you all perform advising and what you do for students is an amazing part of your job. And I don't think we've tried to capture that in any substantial way before in program health. But you all can remind me, especially I know Jesse, who's been a part of this for a long time, as has Kathy, we can speak to some of our past experiences. But my intention is to get through these first 4 modules this fall. The 5th module is one that I will admit I need to do some more work on, and bringing you all better data on industry and transfer connections. Yes, you have the relationships, of course, but I want to better support some of you with collecting and reporting data on that. Certainly curriculum relevancy is something that I think we can talk to each other about, but today's focus is really on retention. Again, as a reminder, this is a draft in progress. How are we going to score all of the stories that you tell? And again, I think it's less about putting a certain number. So a real rubric, of course, has some sort of quantitative approach to it, where we're assigning a numerical value to the stories that you tell. But I'm not quite as interested in doing that as I am in giving you some clarity, granted, albeit not finalized clarity, but some clarity in how are we scoring, or what are we doing with these stories that you all tell, that they don't just sit on a shelf, but that they are reviewed and evaluated by academic leaders, and want to make sure that you have some understanding of how we're attempting to use the information that you're providing. Okay, before we shift gears, I wanted to pause just to see if there were any questions or comments on that first overview section. All right. Yes, absolutely, Gail. Your help on that 5th one will be wonderful. Let me now shift gears, first as a reminder, to how we find our friend Watermark. I will begin sharing my screen. I don't see that Mel joined, so could you do me a favor, Terry? Send Mel an email for me, Mel Boynton, and let her know that I gave her the link to a Zoom in our Teams chat. If you don't mind just saying, hey, Mel, Tim sent you a Zoom link in Teams chat, and then maybe she'll check her emails and come join us. She doesn't need to be here, but thought she might enjoy what I'm trying to tell. Okay, as a reminder, here's how we find Watermark, the tool where we are going to do some data entry today. The college intranet homepage has a couple of ways to get to it. The easiest one is the Watermark link at the center of the page at the bottom. And when you click on that, you may actually see a couple of boxes appear when you open it, one for planning and self-study and one for course evaluations and surveys. And Terry and I will come up with some training for everybody when it gets closer to December, when the bulk of course evaluations are going to go out. Some faculty have already been testing the features for the 5-week one and the 7-week one classes where the surveys are out. And my report to you is that whatever the faculty have been doing, and maybe it's just letting the students know about this or having them see it in Canvas, we have a 80% response rate for 5-week one surveys and a 75% response rate for 7-week one course evaluations. So response rate is part of it, right? But then it's really about the quality of the information that we get from it.
But it's like up, like.
That's like double and triple what we used to get.
Right, like I know you're just saying, oh, the response rate, but the response rate.
The response rate is, but again,
Mhm.
getting the value out of it is what, you know,
Yeah.
I want to do.
Yeah,
be able
no, I
to
hear
do.
you.
And so I think you're right, Karen, great to have the response rate. And then what I'm going to begin training everybody on is, well, what do we do with the information and how do we get it?
Yep.
Trying to get us out of the mindset of waiting for somebody to send me a PDF file with my results. It is now, you will log in and we'll show you how to do this, but you'll log into the system the same way and be able to go and see your results right away, 2 days after the survey closes. Okay, back to today. Sorry, slight tangent. We are talking about program health review. And again, I am on a homepage of Gen Ed, which I am pretending is a degree granting academic program here, which anybody who leads one as a department chair should see similar information. Again, left-hand navigation, you will land on the homepage that should show projects in progress. You will probably not see anything on strategic direction, but you will hopefully see something on 24-25 academic program assessment. You may still see 23-24 program review, because I don't know, Terry, if we need to archive that or where that is, but we're leaving it out there for now. And where I want to spend some time is on 24-25 annual program health review. So selecting that will provide you with the program overview landing page. And what that shows us is, again, a left-hand navigation with all 5 modules. We spent some time last month talking about enrollment trends. Today, we're going to talk about a handful of these modules on retention. Again, you can left-hand nav, anything in purple is clickable. They are also all listed in the center portion, and we are going to talk through a handful of these today. So any questions or concerns yet about Watermark access? I hope that's the easy part of the follow along so far. Great. Let's take a look at each of these in turn. And when we get to pass rates and success rates and retention rates, I will show you what that looks like in the dashboard that we have created. I will also say that I have begun the process with our IR colleagues to create a dashboard just for program health. It is a version of the academic program student performance, but it's simplified. My hope is that that's going to be the place that everybody says, where do I go for program health? You go to one dashboard and you find all of your answers there. Right now we have to jump around a little bit, but I'm working on making that easier to use for everybody. So let's take a peek at learning outcomes first. I chose to click learning outcomes on the left-hand side. And what that does is that refreshes the page in the middle. And it's saying that I haven't done anything yet. There is one piece of evidence in here, one document that I put in there. And it looks like what I happened to put for Gen Ed was the results of the academic program assessment plans from last year. Terry, maybe we did that, but that does show me the learning outcomes that we tried to measure last year with, well, no, we did, this is for this year, I guess. That's right, 24-25, sorry, professional readiness and scientific literacy. Last year we did civic engagement and critical thinking, I think.
That's right.
So that's for, I wanted to show you all, if there's some evidence or if there's something in your, and many of you may not have this. I think Terry and I were playing around with the feature of how to deliver data to you. But if we wanted to write the narrative of the story, this is one of those examples where the system, I hope, and I'm kind of curious to see what you all are seeing here, that if we built this correctly, if you have program learning outcomes connected to your program, it should pull them in and list them at the top of your window. Are you seeing something, Karen, when you're poking around in biotech? I know we were working on our learning outcomes, so I'm not sure if you see anything there.
I see where it's supposed to be, but it doesn't.
It's not showing anything yet?
That's because.
Okay, that's right. We only pulled over the Gen Eds yet so far. So we will get there. The Gen Eds showed up.
Yeah, the professional readiness, scientific literacy.
Again, this list is for, of course, our, and I'm seeing, Terry, we mislabeled critical thinking here. We'll have to correct that. And we'll make sure our outcome numbers are correct. But I'm hopeful, Robin, for example, if you're playing along, or Gail in your programs, because I can see you both, or even Kathy, do you see your own program learning outcomes listed here?
Should this be the map that we put in last year?
Not the full map, just the learning outcomes
for our program, like the 5 or 6 that we put. Yeah,
well, and I'm trying to remember, Kathy, that we only did them for the umbrella program for you.
Exactly. It says education AS all majors.
All right.
So I do I do have that screen, but I don't have any outcomes.
Okay. Robin, do you see any from business, or Gail, do you see any of yours from MedLab on this learning outcome screen?
I'm trying to find the learning outcome screen.
Okay, let me go back to where I was. How about, were you on this health review landing page, Gail? Did I get you here yet?
I'm on the course evaluation and surveys.
Okay, get out of that one, Gail. Come back to the home page and click on planning and self-study.
I was wondering about that. Okay.
Yep. Let me show you all what those, again, the very first option that you're presented with clicking on, you won't have this system administration button, but you will have course evals and planning and self-study. And again, the company is Watermark. I've been referring to all of our things within Watermark as the same name,
Yeah, we
but
need to
they
change
have
that
different,
probably.
yeah, they have different products, right? They're a for-profit, so they get to charge us differently for everything that we want to use.
Hmm.
But they charge us for planning and self-study. So if you click on that,
Yay
Gail,
for
my hope,
business.
yay for good for money, right? Hooray, capitalism. So Gail, my hope is that when you land on your homepage, you'll see something that looks like this with the name of the program and then left-hand navigation that has this in progress program information, curriculum, et cetera. And then where I asked us to go today is into the 24-25 annual program health review. And again, top nav should tell you where you are. And I wanted to just show you that in the module 2, we weren't sure really where to put learning outcomes. We know we needed it to be part of this exercise. What I am asking of you all with this particular narrative is that you are acknowledging where we are in the journey of our learning outcomes. Karen Neal has a much different story to tell, Kathy, than you do, because we've talked, Kathy, a lot about your learning outcomes and how they align to the program and what you're trying to measure. And Karen is working on completing these. So we're going to have different stories to tell here. But my intention is that in this narrative box, you are providing some judgment from your perspective of the learning outcomes for the program are being finalized this year. We are focusing on these core elements this year. Again, remember, if a program has 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, I hope fewer than 7. It depends on the program. I know Jesse Miller measures a lot. You don't have to measure every single outcome every single year. You don't have to do that. I defer to the faculty to say what's most valuable to you. If it is, I want to measure everything every year, I will defer to you to do that.
So that means I can pick and choose which data I share,
You can
and
pick-
then I can hide the stuff that's
You
ugly?
can put it wherever you want.
Okay.
What I will say to you is, let's work on the things that need work. And if you're proud of something and you're proud of some work you're doing, I would love to have you put that story next to the one that,
Right.
you know,
sandwich.
I need a little bit of, I
The
need a little bit of
sandwich?
guidance here. That's right, the sandwich method. Two positives and one opportunity. But you can be selective here. What we are being judged on by our accreditors is that we have a process, faculty are engaged with it. We are not taking several years off, or we are not saying, I'm going to look at it again next year. That we are actually doing an honest exercise of engagement with our learning. They don't care how good we are at it. They just want to see that we're doing it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I do not see my outcomes when I click on that link, and as you know, I have put them in.
You do, Gail. All right, Terry and I will do some investigation.
The second thing I would like to add at this point, just because there may be others in the same situation, I have defined learning outcomes from my national accreditors, and I have different ones for the program, and they probably should be delineated differently.
That's right. Yes, we will work on that together, Gail, but let me make
Okay.
sure that the learning outcomes are connected to program health. This is one of the benefits of the system, that it should just pull over automatically. So when you're telling a story about learning outcomes, you don't have to go look somewhere else for them. You can say, oh, I see them right here. And my judgment of those are that I'm confident in them and I'm doing this sort of measurement with them.
Mhm.
So that was learning outcomes. Any more comments before we move on to pass rates?
Is there a place?
Okay,
Is there a place, like if I go back to 23-24, can I tell? There's an export button. Is that, can we
so
move?
the way I would go tell Kathy is that back on your homepage, your program information on the left-hand side should list your learning outcomes for you with whatever description you've chosen to write about them. Again, this is meant to be, because you are not doing the deep dive here, right? The deep dive on learning outcome measurement occurs on the program assessment side. This is you stepping back and out to say, overall, I'm giving you a big picture summary of where my learning outcomes and my process is. My intention in program health is not for you to say, I picked this assignment in this course and this is what I saw, this was the scoring that we did. That occurs in the program assessment exercise. This is end of the year, step back. My outcomes are solid, my outcomes need some work. I'm satisfied, I'm dissatisfied, and here are the reasons why. So yes, I would go back to find them. You could go back, Kathy, to the last review if we wrote, but they were in a different place. And so I think the easiest thing to do when telling the story about your learning outcomes is to come to your homepage and click on program information on the left-hand side, and you will see them listed in Watermark. Remember, I mentioned, well, for those of you who were there, you heard me say this, but we are moving forward with putting learning outcomes in the catalog for 25-26. And the source of those learning outcomes is going to be what you all put in Watermark. So we are going to export in the spring the learning outcomes from Watermark and say, these are the ones that the faculty have spent time looking at. And so they are ready to go into the catalog. Now we'll still do some checking and we'll still do some reviewing, but I want the faculty to own the learning outcomes, and I want you all to be comfortable in the fact that they will be shared with students via the catalog. Well, maybe being comfortable is too much to ask, but being aware, I should say. I should measure.
Mine are already shared, and it's not a problem with the students.
Health professions, Gail, is the, I would say,
I
model
understand.
outlier. Yeah, model outlier. But some programs explain them. We call them different things in the catalog. I've already talked to Angela Ross about this, and she is fully on board with us moving forward with some standardization of language related to outcomes. So that's the outcomes. Let me move into where we are with, I think I might have this open twice. Let me close this one. With our next step into data for retention, which is related to pass rates. Again, this is a narrative that I want you all to tell that's based on data. Again, when I open up the right narrative screen, I get my big box of writing space on the left-hand side with no preset data above it. I get some prompts on the right as a brief reminder. What we're trying to do here is based, again, on your knowledge and your review of student performance, which courses have pass rate issues within your program. So how do I answer that question? Well, we have a dashboard for that, right? That's the way we answer a lot of our questions. The academic program student performance dashboard is different than the college-wide student performance dashboard. There are two different ones. So the college-wide student performance dashboard is accessible on the intranet. This academic program student performance dashboard requires you to log in via SAS. How do you get that? Let's go to the intranet homepage. The intranet homepage has a college reports and dashboards link. Brings us to the home of the institutional research website. There are left-hand navigations showing all the different things that they've got going. The academic program performance dashboard is one of the links that you can click on. And notice on the left-hand side, there is also a college-wide student performance dashboard. The college-wide one does not give you the same drill down capacity to get to your program. So that's why it's useful if you want to look at a big picture. But for this exercise in pass rates in particular, I need you to be able to drill down to the level and actually see what's going on within the program that you lead. So college-wide is useful in some ways, but I need you to be in the academic program student performance dashboard. So again, there's a lot of information that IR puts out here for reminders of how to access, how to get to. The live dashboard link is what will cause you to open the SAS.com menu. So maybe if I click on it, I think because I'm signed in, because I'm signed in, it'll already take me to it. If I weren't signed in, it would give me a little login screen. I'll sign out, I suppose, to show you all what that sign in looks like. Should have 2 lines. Karen is getting a cannot access.
I have the same thing.
So here's my guess. Karen and Terry are on Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi signal tells me that I am connected to the JSRCC net. Karen, if you click on your little arrow, we can't see it in the participant screen. So if you click on the 3 little Wi-Fi or the little Wi-Fi sort of umbrella and go up and tell me what network your computer is on.
I'm the JSRCC net.
You are connected, secured.
Mine too.
Okay.
I
Then
think we discovered that if you're not hardwired, you need to use your VPN.
so
I
that's
can do
interesting,
that.
Kathy. I agree.
Even though you're
I am
here.
not hardwired and I am not on VPN, but let's try it.
I'm switching it right now.
Yeah, let's try it and see.
So that just told me that it failed.
I know we bump into we bump into access issues a lot with this, and I'm realizing that is one of the frustrations too,
Why is it?
I'm
telling
getting the
me-
same thing.
when you're trying to get onto the VPN.
Mhm.
Because if you are on the JSRCC net secured, that you don't need a
You get the
VPN.
exact same thing, right?
Mhm.
Even though I agree that Kathy's suggestion for solving it is often to do that.
Huh.
So do I disconnect from the other thing and then use my VPN?
It seems like a workaround to me.
Let's try.
Mel, thanks for joining. Glad you found us. As you can hear, we're bumping into things that, and Vaughn, sorry. So I'm showing you, all right, let me back up. From the college intranet homepage, Vaughn said, how did we get to what that I was looking at? From this homepage, Yvonne, I hope you see my
No,
my
I was
screen.
gonna see if.
There is a
Yours
tile
before I
that's
did anything.
dedicated to college reports and dashboards.
Enough.
And by selecting that,
Trying.
I land on the IR homepage.
A minute ago.
And I went to the left-hand side where all their menu options are showing. And I was drawing the distinction between the college-wide student performance, which does not permit deep dives into programs, and the academic program performance dashboard. When you click on that, I'm still on the college intranet, I'm still in the IR homepage. They actually give you a snapshot of what a landing page looks like. And again, remember the title is Academic Program Student Performance. I clicked on this first, click here to access the dashboard. And Karen did too, and then got, could not recognize, as did Terry. I signed in earlier and was able to land on the web page or the SAS Visual Analytics screen that shows.
Go back to the intranet for a second.
Thanks, Mel.
Scroll up a little bit. Oh, okay. I see the problem. Yeah,
What do you
'cause
see?
Oh,
you may need to update the link. This dashboard is only available through login.
Yes, yes. No, I did explain that. And because I had logged in, it automatically sent me into the dashboard. But
Yeah.
let me log out.
Yeah, show them that step. I think that will help you.
I'm gonna sign out so that
Yeah.
when I click on that link, you'll see what the typical landing page is. So this is the screen I hope that you see,
right,
right? When you
That's
click
where-
on that.
that's where I started.
And then my JSROTXM, most of the sign-ins are similar to this. JSR, the 0, first initial, X, last initial. If you have a name that has a lot of first and last, you might have a 1 or a 2 after that. And then since I don't have my password saved or memorized because I was told that's not good practice, I go and copy it off of my notepad and sign in. And I've also said if I win the lottery and people need to log in on my behalf, they can go grab any Reynolds login off of my notepad. And then you may get, some people get different menus here. This is where I was seeing that the last time Karen and some of our deans got to this page, they didn't have the all of the reports that I was hoping they would have. So Mel helps me with getting access to the various folders. So you may not see as many of these as I see, but ideally within student performance, this is the academic program student performance dashboard that provides almost all of the data needed to answer the questions related to program health. So I want to make sure you all get access. That is obviously important. And then I want to make sure you understand where to go. So this will be recorded, right? This is being recorded.
Mhm.
So if you can't keep up now, like Robin said, you can go back, and I'm trying to shorten these recordings into chunks. So it's like, just jump to the part where you talk about pass rates. And that is this part. So with my program head hat on, I'm going to pick on Karen's program because she's still trying to keep up, and there aren't a whole lot of students yet. So again, the organization of dashboards is that you have your big title at the top, and then you have tabs going across the bottom that sometimes aren't quite as intuitive to find because it looks like it blends in very nicely. But when your mouse hovers over them, you select a tab and it'll refresh the screen below. Then the next most powerful part of a dashboard is your ability to filter information. So what is defaulted, again, you are told what your filters are if you go to the left-hand part of the screen. And the filters in this dashboard appear as little ovals. And accessing the filters are in all of these drop-down boxes below. The very first one, for our sake, that is most meaningful to you all is the academic program filter. And again, organized alphabetically for all the numerous programs that we have. And because Mel has built this dashboard to go back in time, we have programs in here that are currently not active, right? Because we are capturing several years of history. But if you want to go back and see, for example, automotive maintenance and light repair, there is data in this dashboard. Oops, what's that screen? Teams, I don't need Teams open right now. So biotech lab major, I select it. Oops, let me make sure I actually click on it. And it takes a minute to refresh. It looks like my internet is doing some fun things right now. Let me refresh the browser. Slowly coming back up. Academic program student performance is where I want to be. I want to be in the pass rates tab because this is the retention story that I'm talking about right now. And I'm picking on Karen because she's sitting across from me, the biotech lab major. Notice now that the filters, so train your eyes to start on the upper left-hand side of all these dashboards. Before you begin investigating the data, you want to know, has it been filtered in any particular way yet? So the very first thing you train your eyeballs to is left-hand, upper left-hand side. The biotech lab major is showing these students, we don't even have to pick a semester, right? Because we know we're just talking about fall. We can to confirm, and it won't adjust anything. I guess if we had some summer enrolled students, it would. So let's include the summer folks too. So now notice again where my eyes are, we've got a major selected and we've got some select semesters. So when I say you're telling your program health story, it probably makes sense to grab the most recent data, the most recent information. So I would filter on probably the last full academic year. If we had a program that was operational last year, I would go back and say, I'm telling the history of this program, recent history. You could expand that to a couple of years. Again, I want to be flexible with you to empower you to tell the most interesting story that you have to tell. And so you may say, I want to grab a few years of history and tell that story. That's all fair game. Pass rates, very specifically, talk about what is occurring, what is going on overall with the different courses. Now, we picked a program that doesn't have a lot of students in it, so we're not seeing a lot of data here. If Karen will permit me to pick a larger program just so we can see what it's like, and because we were sort of pretending that general studies, general education was our program, I'm going to go down here and pick Gen Studies. Now notice a lot more data appears. So this is where semester data filtering might be more helpful and more useful. And I can go back and say, well, give me fall 23 summer 23, right, which would happen just before, and spring 24. Let me grab the last academic year. And again, upper left-hand side, I'm talking about Gen Studies. I'm talking about 3 semesters worth of students and their data. And this is sort of where I am. I'm seeing where are their issues? What are my students earning in their grades? How are they doing? If I had a sense of what are the courses within this program that I would like to focus on, maybe my storytelling could be around, well, let me think about English classes just for an example. I'm kind of curious in the base level English classes for students who are in my program, how are they doing? And I come back here and I see that 71% are earning a C or better. There are a lot of students taking English level classes who have Gen Studies, which is not a surprise, right? This is, again, my brain, my familiarity with this program. I know what courses students should be or are taking. And this part of the exercise in retention is, how are they doing? Are they passing this course? Is 70%, 71% good in your mindset? That's what I would ask overall. One way to tell is if I removed the program filter, I left everything else. I left the semester and the school and the classes.
Says dock camera. What else do you
Ooh,
have?
hey, Gail, I can, let me mute you. That's all right. The overall story for students taking English 111 and 112, I removed the filters and I'm now looking at 3,000 students. There was an 80% pass rate for all students. And remember, when we filtered for just Gen Studies, that number went down to 71. So that's an interesting story, and maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know it. I'm not the expert in that program, but if Robin spoke about what she's observing with the business students, she might have an idea. And I would want her to capture that idea in this part of Watermark, right? To say, I looked at Gen Studies pass rates and saw that 71% of my students were passing English 111 and 112, the students. And while that seems okay, I compared it to the college rate of English 111 and 112, saw an 80% pass rates for that time frame. So that gives me some pause to think about something. Maybe I have an idea, maybe there's something to investigate, but this is the opportunity to tell that story. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Thanks, Robin, for letting me use you as an example there.
I have a
Mel,
question that might be
please.
for Mel. So we have an Associates of Science in Education with 7 different majors. I see all of the majors here, which is fine. I can go through that data, but I also see Education AS, which looks like there's not very many students in it. So we do have a handful of students who never declared a major. Do you think that's those students that are just in that one tab?
Probably. The way to confirm, if you want to do that, like we can look up those specific students and investigate them, but that's a good question actually for the registrar, because a lot of times they have a handle on all the specific plan codes that have been used over the years. Sometimes
I
you
have
have
a
a situation.
list.
Yeah,
I
sometimes
do
you
have a list of the students and I've been reaching out and they're
yeah.
trickling in.
Yeah.
So this data comes from SIS.
Yeah, it
Okay.
does.
That's what it is.
And there's also sometimes people in old plan codes where
Mhm.
it's still on their record somehow, but like, they haven't bothered to update it, just like you're describing. And so until they actually update their plan, the plans on their record, it's still going to float. As long as they have enrollment, they're still going to pop up when we
Okay.
look at this data because it's technically on there.
Thanks.
Thanks for clarifying, Mel, and good question, Kathy. The purpose of this, and again, I'm working on a redesign with Devora to make this more useful to program heads while they're doing program review. I'm trying to figure out what's useful to you all, bless you, Tangi, when you're trying to tell the story about your pass rates. And I went in and selected a handful of courses because I knew. But program heads may say to me, actually, Tim, what I'd like to see is maybe a chart of where they are struggling, right? Like, don't make me know, just present for me and then let me respond to that. So that's the give and take that I want to hear feedback from you all. I am not an academic program head, so I know when you have a little chunk of time to do this work, I want you to be able to go in and take a look at something and then give me your thoughts or your judgment of it. And if pass rates would be easier to see in a different design than this, I think the source of the data would be the same. So I wouldn't be asking IR to go looking for different bits of data, but I would be saying what I've heard from department chairs is that they want to see it presented a little bit differently. And so we could work on a graph that would say, you know, show me, again, I'd have to figure this out. We'd have to think through it. If there is a set number of key courses or something that you would like to pop up, we can work on doing that for the program health dashboard.
If you're not able to get to that at all, is the best way to get around that is to submit a ticket to get that
Those past,
worked out?
those grades data, I want to get you access first. So that's try to solve that problem together with me first.
Okay,
If you cannot, then I suppose I would want to talk with Mel about that to say, yeah, I guess I'd want to talk to Mel about, can we find a plug-in report or something else that would have that and get you, I want to get you access to the dashboard because that's where you should be.
well, I
That's the
can
main thing.
access the other ones, I just can't access this one.
And
Really?
we fixed this last time
Hmm.
and I was able to get in. I think you were as well. And then I
What we
saved my
were look-
password and everything, and now this time it won't.
No.
And now every time I go in, it just says you don't have access to this, so I can't even get back to the password screen.
All right.
I would ask that if IR could meet with those folks individually who are having this difficulty, so we can
Okay,
resolve
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think
Alright.
that's good, Mel. We'll handle those one-on-one
Yeah,
and
yeah.
try and figure that out for sure.
Yeah.
then I won't submit a ticket.
Don't submit a ticket yet, but ping me when you get a minute, Karen, and we'll hop, and maybe if it's staying for a quick minute after this, but the rest of these sections, I just want to do again, the pattern will be the same for all of them, right? That each one of these prompts is meant to say, yes, while I talked about pass rates and I happen to use English as an example, many of you, most of you know that the college is also focused on gateway English and math overall. So this exercise does provide you an opportunity to say, we've got a gateway math and a gateway English tab that, again, same filters, we do the same thing. And this is another opportunity for you to say, the English and math courses that are part of my program, my students are experiencing X, Y, and Z based on this data. You may have a sense in hearing from your faculty or hearing from the students directly that they are struggling in their English because, or math to them would be more helpful if blah. That's the sort of narrative that I would like to capture in this storytelling, not necessarily English pass rates are 62%. Next one. What's your judgment of that? Is 62% satisfactory to you? Do you want to change it? Based on the data we're seeing in this dashboard. I gave you two quick examples of pick a program, compare it to the overall rates by a particular semester or year. I don't want you to do too much deep diving in here because, again, this is meant to be a big picture step back and tell the story, but I want to show you where some of the data and evidence can be used to help you do that. Gateway courses are part of this, again, part of the dashboard. Overall retention rates, right, are very much a part of this dashboard. The first two tabs are fall to fall and fall to spring. In the very specific program health dashboard, we're going to remove these first to second, second to third. Mel built that back in the day because those were items of interest, and I think they still are to Dr. Dwyer and some others. But in my discussing with department chairs for program health, it's really fall to fall and fall to spring that matter the most. So those are the bits of data that I want to make available. And again, selecting a program and then just telling a basic story regarding the data of what's going on. Something is occurring here, and it's not many students, right? So it's hard to tell a real compelling retention story when you don't have a lot of students. But maybe there's something here that jumps out to Gail, or maybe there's something that she knows students are wrestling with in terms of their efforts or ability to retain or come back. That's the information that I'm hoping gets captured in this program health process. You look at the information and you know that it is either representing things you've come up with, or it's making you say, oh, okay, that's a trend that I wasn't quite aware of. Maybe there's a reason for that. It's that information from your knowledge, from your expertise, from your experiences that I'm hoping Program Health captures. Because again, the results of this get delivered to the deans and others, and they're saying, oh, Karen's really experiencing some challenges here. I wonder if we can do something to alleviate that. Or we're seeing some real trends that are occurring. Maybe if this was happening, we would be able to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like I said, the last piece of this that is the most challenging, that doesn't really have a compelling data connection, is advising. Now, I know Mel has been working with creating some advising supportive dashboards, but I don't think we're quite ready. And Mel, I'll defer to you. I think those were really targeted specifically for units that were trying to get students to engage with the advising process, less so the advising that faculty does. I couldn't remember though, Mel, I thought, and I don't necessarily want to pull it up because I'm not sure I know it well enough to speak to it, but if advising data is something that is useful to program heads, we could try to pull a tab into the dashboard to say, advising data kind of looks like this for 31 plus students, right? Because faculty, I think, don't have as much direct connection to advising, some programs aside, but aren't doing as much advising for 0 to 30 students as they are 31 plus.
But that piece of that 0 to 30, that can tell a
Still
really
useful,
compelling
right?
story.
Good point.
Because that's gonna impact whether they're getting in those gateway English and math
Right,
courses
right.
and progressing through the curriculum at a pace that's, they aren't
Yeah.
taking, underwater basket weaving when they should be taking
That's
Calc
right.
2.
How are they
Mhm.
being tracked, right?
So,
Program maps, true, are also going to impact this.
right,
Are they following a pattern that will get them where they need to be?
but I'm not sure that's dashboard data as so much as it navigate data.
Oh, interesting. Right. And I think Mel has cracked a little bit of the code. I guess I shouldn't speak
Say
to you,
that
Mel.
question again, Karen?
So as I'm thinking about the advising process, first of all, I don't know that your dashboard stuff goes into navigate,
It does.
but
It does. It does.
So you could potentially pull navigate data of those students, how many of them have seen an
Potentially, we
advisor.
do. We do.
Okay. But that dashboard is not broadly available yet, Mel? I
Well,
forget.
so right now we're waiting for Dr. Mosquita Makaya to look at it and give her feedback before we roll it out more broadly. We have a draft. I think it's an
Okay.
enrollment summary, maybe. You can show it. We
Okay.
have a draft of it. And Karen, it's draft. So it's the third one from the bottom. It will continue to get adjustments. It's not perfect by any stretch right now. But it does bring in data from Navigate and in real time. So this is
And I did
one
want to
involved-
highlight, Mel, this is one of the elements that I also want to go into program health. I think Mel and her team created these landing pages so that before you even start to look and investigate data, it's context. This is what this is trying to report on, and this is how you can use it. So again, I think this is brilliant. I really like these welcome pages, but because before you start, oh, let me go,
Mhm.
pause for a second. And why am I here? What am I looking at? So thanks, Mel. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries. So if you just want to click around and show a little with the understanding we're still developing this. This is just a draft, but it does pull in data from Navigate.
And I forget, Mel, I know you've shown this to me once, but would this have faculty advisor
Mhm.
names in it too?
Yeah, like
Oh, yeah, there's Nakia and
yeah.
I see some.
You can see them
So-
there.
Can you drill down for specific programs like early education or engineering? Like from a department chair?
Go to the student
with that.
academics tab. It might be there. Go to the student academics tab.
Oops.
Because that's something that could really inform.
Yeah, I
Nope.
think it's there.
Primary
If you
plan,
scroll on
just
that.
a few.
But those are only the ones where we had that. I
Oh,
mean, we can
Robin
validate
would
that,
know.
but yes, I hear what you're saying, Karen. Yes, we do want to put that in the line. I think that's part of the plan.
Whoa, Sheila
Right now, we're
Waters.
waiting for Dr. Mosquito Mackay to kind of
Sister in here.
get a look at this and start giving us feedback on what they want and don't want. And you guys too, honestly. I think it would be great for you to participate in the design because we want this to be useful for everybody. So it's a rough draft, very rough draft right now, but
I wasn't aware that this could talk to that, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, Mel
yeah,
cracked that
we
code.
crack that nut and we bring in through Amazon Web Services, we bring the data through every day from Navigate over into this tool.
That's awesome.
There's
That's
Gail. Gail, here's your stuff in there. Hope you don't mind.
When will we have access to this?
I mean, as soon as we finish development and it gets approved. Right now, we're in a holding pattern waiting for enrollment management to want to work on it. So that's what we're waiting for at this point.
So still very drafty, test do not use, but this, Mel, again, I think could be really helpful and
Helpful for this.
useful
Mhm.
for the program health process. So I forgot to mention that when I was talking to Devora, that would be,
If this is gonna be pulled from Navigate, we need to find a way to clean up Navigate and make it easier to do what you need to do because it's labor intensive.
Yeah. I
Other
think the
people
data
may
has
not
even
agree,
wording.
but if I see, if I talk with 5 students a day, for me to put those 5 students in is anywhere up to half an hour to an hour when I could be grading papers or providing lecture material or something. It's just something that just needs to be part of the process then.
I hear that.
yeah, and I have not waded into this yet, but I've, heard that even how faculty are supported and trained on using Navigate hasn't been really thorough.
Not saying we're recording.
Yeah, I've never used it. I just advise them on their way.
Yeah, so I know the advisors rely on it because you can see the volume that they're using, and I think some faculty have taken the time to learn it, but I think, we're in CETL, right? This is if it will be informative to the story we're trying to tell about program health, then faculty ought to be supported in their efforts to pull and use that data. So thanks, Mel, for letting us test this. I'm really glad you joined, and I couldn't remember for sure the status of where this was, so I wasn't prepared to walk through it, but with your approval, I appreciate that. So today's goal, I think, for me was accomplished, that I wanted to walk through together with you all the story we're trying to tell with retention. It's the largest of all of them because you all have been doing a lot of retention work lately, and I wanted it to be, I don't want to create more work, but what I'm trying to do is reflect or allow you to highlight and report on the work that has been occurring by department chairs in this space for the past several years, really. And I think, again, we have seen the results of that in the overall college numbers, right? I mean, the overall retention rates are skyrocketing, right? Because in large part, I think faculty have been doing a lot of work in this space. So I want, and we heard this from department chairs too, that there wasn't enough opportunity to really speak to some of the efforts that were ongoing. Retention happens to be a priority. There happens to be a lot of work occurring on it. Why aren't we given that appropriate space in our storytelling on program health? So we're trying to address that. What else from the audience would be worthwhile? We're at our hour, so I want to respect those who have other things to do and go to. I am free to stay and hang out for a little bit in Zoom and walk through some examples that others might want to try and share. But I wanted to thank you all for coming and participating and joining me in this journey.
Would there be a
Huh?
way to look at and figure out what the roadblocks are? Like, I guess if you looked at success rates for different courses for the students in your program, like maybe there's some options. For me, they can take some different lab sciences, and I could look at the
Mm.
success rates of chemistry versus geology versus biology, maybe. Would that be something that I think it'd be useful? Would it be something that would be part of this process?
Absolutely. That's a good point, Kathy. And actually, that's something that I would maybe want to talk more with Mel about, because how can we deliver some sort of visual or some sort of data to you? I think of it as one of my favorite visualizations is a Sankey diagram, which looks like a river splitting into tributaries. Where if you said we had 100 students declare as a major, and they all started taking their classes, and at this particular point, they split. And some continued on, some changed plans, some dropped out. What was that inflection point? Was it a class? Was it an experience? Was it a something? I don't really know how we can get
Actually,
at that from the data, but
Yeah, so actually we did something very similar, and Karen remembers because I'm pretty sure she was in that demo. We analyzed some STEM students, and one thing we observed was that basically there's a huge chunk, a very, very large chunk of students, if they don't make it past their first semester or two, they don't make it. They just leave the college. So we definitely saw, and then there was some students, what we saw was, it's called a decision tree. And what we saw is the students who moved like sequentially from one semester to the next were the most likely just to finish, regardless of what classes they took. So just that momentum of continuing forward.
Persistence.
And obviously, of course, you
Mhm.
have to pass your classes to continue forward, right? And then there were students who took gaps, and the students who took gaps really didn't finish. And then there were a lot of students who they just simply exited within the first semester or two. So I think that, although we can continue that analysis, like there has been some work already to look at that. And unfortunately, there's just such a large number of students, they come in for one semester, maybe two, and then they're gone.
But I also think too, Mel, in
Mhm.
telling that story,
Mm-hmm.
we have to understand the piece of how many of those students had intention to do that anyway. They put it under an Associates of Science so that they could take some prereqs and then
Mm.
get the financial aid and then go to VCU. Like I have so many students that I'm like, you just have a few
Yeah.
more classes, and they're like,
Right.
no, I'm gonna go ahead and go to
Right.
VCU.
And we did include in the analysis if the student transferred out as a success. And we could exclude them from that view. So
I
we
think
did,
it's really
Yeah.
hard to get that at that decision point. What is it that's causing that decision? Like, is it a
Mm.
life event? Is it, I wasn't planning on staying here anyway? Those sorts of things are difficult to get to. But like in
I
other
think
pieces,
the life event is difficult to get to. I agree with that, but being able to measure whether or not they transferred can be done and was done.
okay,
So we
okay.
were able to analyze that. And yes,
Okay.
absolutely, there was a good chunk of students who they exited because they went to another institution, and that's fine. But there was largely VCU. That's like where half of our students go. But then there's,
Right.
again, still a large number of students who exit, who do not go on to any other higher education opportunity. So, and they're exiting quickly.
I can usually
Yeah.
talk mine into transferring coursework back and still graduating.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's good.
Yeah, the reverse transfer idea, Kat, that's right. That is a institution-wide
But that's where
opportunity.
that new partnership, like where they're gonna start out as VCU students
And
here, that will help with some of that.
the Hawks to Ram, what is it, Red
Yeah.
Hawks to Rams? Yeah, so I think Kathy, it's a good question, and I do like to think about it visually. How do we find those stop out points? And I think Mel's right. The main answer is just credit accumulation, which is why, again, the institutional initiative is let's get 12 and 24 credits, right? Accumulated in your first year. Let's have you get these markers, because it is just the more you're here, the more you're here, the more likely you are to be impacted by the faculty and want to stay. So great question. Thank you. We'll keep working on it. Please keep asking us for that. Hey, Gail.
Is there a mechanism in place where we can assess what they take semester by semester that causes them to stop out? What I'm finding is they take all of the perceived easier courses early on, and then they're caught with biology, chemistry, and math all at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's overwhelming. It's just,
The-
and add a English 2 into that as well, and that's just horrendous amount of work, and they should be pacing a little bit better. Can we address that from this perspective as well? On a
So-
case by case?
I have an answer and then I'd be curious to hear Mel's retort. The way I think about getting at that is through this process of creating program map scale, where you are prescribing to students a path that you
Mhm.
would expect them to follow in a certain sequence, right?
We've
Don't
got
say,
that all mapped out, and we're very clear and we're very explicit, and they say, no, I don't want to take that. And they're, okay, fine, then what do you want to take? Oh, you want to take psych
Mhm.
and social, no sciences, even though you're going to major in a science. I mean, how do we hold them to the map? I mean, that's the question.
are you asking how I get my kids to eat their vegetables? Is that the question?
Yeah,
you're getting at?
uh-huh.
This is good for you and I know it and you don't.
A little ranch dressing on it.
Yeah, add some cheese. So
And
again.
we don't need a full-scale conversation here because it's a much bigger picture than this meeting.
It is.
Yeah.
We are able now, because of Mel's help, to measure whether students are staying on these program maps. So we can tell, but you're saying you are experiencing that anyway and trying to figure out how to convince them to do what's good for them. If I'm hearing you correctly, I'm not really
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and I want to take one course in the major. Well, you can't until you apply to the major.
Right.
Well, I want to take it. I'm sorry, you can't. And then we go through that conversation.
Yeah. Or they say Brightpoint would let me.
Well, no, because they don't have the major, but yes, you got the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. No, Gail, thank you. Those are good questions. I don't have a clear answer for that.
It just may be part of future discussions.
I think
Yeah.
so. Okay, well, thank you all. Again, I'm happy to stay if anybody wants to walk through a specific exam. I will continue to sort of hold drop-in office hours that I'll share with department chairs and you all, just where I will be available. And sitting in a Zoom room that if anybody says, okay, Tim, I need to start doing this, I'd be happy to walk through it with anybody. And I will, thank you, Robin, for reminding me to record, try to break this long session into bite-sized chunks and put some ranch dressing on them and put them onto the faculty hub so that people who are in Canvas can go get a little bit of, how do I get into the dashboard again? And where do I find pass rates? And how do I examine this? We'll try to split that up into smaller pieces.
Or leave it one big video and give us a timeline.
Well, and that's what that's a better idea, actually, because Bree was saying some of these are going into YouTube, right? And then we just say content at X minutes, and then you can drag it to whatever section you want. That's a lot easier, Robin. Okay, good advice.
And if I can borrow you for a couple of minutes after, I appreciate it.
Yep, I'll stick around. Yvonne, thanks for joining us. I don't know if you had any else. I saw you got into the dashboard, which I'm glad for. I know you're still figuring things out with the opticianry stuff, but if I can be helpful, feel free to reach out. I'm glad you're attending these, hopefully finding them useful. And Jesse, always great to see you. I wasn't sure if you were multitasking or not, but I know you know this stuff and I'm glad to be a resource when you're ready to talk through it. And I know Kathy knows what she's doing, but always appreciate your input.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Jesse. Good to see you.
Do we have to wait for the course learning outcomes to come over before we start, or we don't?
No, it's all open whenever. And again, I think my hope was in sort of stacking these that I tried to do enrollment and then I had that session on learning outcomes. So yes, the system is always open. You can go in at any time and make any modifications you want. I am happy to go with you if you want. If you're like, Tim, I've got half an hour today, let's sit down and walk through this. I will do that with you.
I think we need a retreat.
That's a nice idea.
Disney World.
Big island.
Oh, yeah.
You can get everybody out to Kona.
I find data is much easier to analyze at a brewery or a winery. That's been my experience. So if any of you ladies want to join me there and we can do a data analysis session, I am down for that.
Some micro brews in
I
hand.
hear ya.
Yeah.
Nice.
I put
Thanks,
together an
Neil.
entire retreat on a cruise ship for Oregon faculty. And it was cheaper than any hotel, and it was all preset. And then the powers that be took a look at it and went, wait a minute, I could just see the headlines, faculty on a cruise.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's all about location, right? The city offers canal cruises. I saw those boats going the other
Telling
day.
Dan about that. I said, I'd like to do one of those.
Put a dozen faculty on a canal cruise. All right, well, thank you all. Again, I'll hang out and talk to Robin a little bit. She had something in mind. Mel, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really glad you
Thanks, Mel.
participated.
Thank you,
provided. Thanks,
guys.
Gail.
Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
we'll talk to you. Yeah, we'll talk to you
Appreciate
soon.
you.